Check testing. Oh, okay. There we go. Now I got something going on. I was having um so I wanted to do I think you can hear it now. Yeah. Okay. So let me back this up a little bit so you can see my guitar. And so I wanted to kind of try to find a niche for doing this kind of stuff because I just simply enjoy it. And so one of the things I thought I could contribute to folks is, there's a million great players on the internet that you can watch every day, and they can show you licks and stuff. I thought I'd do some basics and try to appeal to that crowd. So one of the things that a couple of my teachers stressed when I was younger was if you learn some basic theory, it'll help you become kind of a well-rounded player where you can start to figure things out for yourself instead of just being kind of a parrot. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. That's great way to develop your ear. But I thought I'd show you some of the basics that was helpful to them. And one of the thing was to just kind of have a grasp of some music theory that'll make you be able to figure things out yourself. And that's always been helpful for myself. And I thought I'd share it with you and see if it helps you out too. So let me just make sure that everyone can hear me. I think it's working okay. And so if anybody's here and listening, if you can just give me the thumbs up if you can hear me, I'd appreciate it. But I can check on my phone here until some folks pop in. So let me just see. Um, anyway, I'm going to assume it is. So the shortest interval that we use in music is called a half step. And it's important to understand half steps, whole steps in every interval, because once you do that, that's at the foundation level. You can do a lot of things with that. And I did a couple lessons on it. And some folks said, well, I don't quite get it yet. But so let's start there. And it's more of a theory lesson than a guitar lesson. So, but if you understand this, one of the things that it's going to enable you to do is to figure out every note on the guitar. With just knowing these two basic concepts, which is valuable, by the way. You'll have a greater understanding of everything. So if somebody says, "Play me a C," you'll know where it is on the neck, or you'll have the ability to figure it out, which of course is important. So the smallest distance between any two notes in music is called a half step. Okay. On the piano, I'll show you my little piano here. On the piano, it's two adjacent white keys with no black key in between. So from here to here, it's a half step. From this one up to the next adjacent black key is a half step. From a black key up to the next white key is a half step. Anytime there's not a black key in between, that's only a half step. Same with this. If there's a white key and then a black key, that's a half step. Same goes for going down. If someone says go down a half step, you go to the adjacent black key. Or if there's no black key in between, it's actually between E and F and B and C, then it's right down to the adjacent white key. So that's on a piano in case you look at it that way. On guitar, a half step is one fret. Okay. And one fret can be between the open string and the first fret. They're all half steps. Or between the second fret and the third fret. So those are all half steps. Anytime you're on one fret and go up one fret, that's a half step. And that's the smallest distance we use in music. To tune, they use smaller increments, called cents. But in music, with the musical alphabet, we use half steps. And then the next most important thing to understand is whole steps. Well, whole steps are two half steps, right? So if I'm on the first fret and I go up two frets, that's a whole step jump. If I'm on the second fret, I got to go up two steps. Two frets, and that's a whole step. So you get the difference between a half step and a whole step. Half step is one fret, and a whole step is two frets. Pretty simple stuff. Well, how is this valuable? Well, first thing is you got to know that in music we use sharps and flats, right? And a sharp raises a note a half step. So if I'm here and somebody says, "Well, just play that sharp one degree sharp," I would go up here. Now this is G, it just happens to be G, and this is G sharp. If they say if I'm on G, lower it a half step, they'll put a flat in front of it. They'll say, so if I'm on G and go down one fret, that's G flat. Okay, so how does this help you? Well, first off, if you know the open strings, okay, just memorize it. So E, B, G, D, A, and E. Those are the open strings on the guitar, the names of the notes. It's important to name the notes. We can kind of build on a lot of this. But so if I go from the E to F, okay, that's a half step. Now notice, so it starts right away, not with the exception, but one you have to kind of memorize. On the piano, notice when you're on E and you go up one key, there's no black key in between. So between E and F in music, there's only a half step. It happens again between B and C. Okay. There's no note in between B and C. Okay. Now, technically, if you want to call this B sharp, you could do that, and some people will do that. But in some circumstances, you may want to. But in any event, there's a half step up from B is C, and a half step up from E is F. A half step up from F is G flat or F sharp. So on the first back to what I was talking about, if you're on the first string and you go up a half step, you get F. If I'm on the second string, B, and I go up a half step, I get to C. So those are the two notes that are side by side on the piano. There's only a half step between E and F and B and C. Okay, everything else is pretty much standard. If I'm on G and go up a half step, well, I get G sharp. If I'm on D and go up a half step, I get D sharp. If I'm on A and go up a half step, I get A sharp. Okay, and the last string is E. Well, if I'm on E and go up a half step, that's F right away. So you just have to memorize between B and C and E and F, there's only a half step. Now, you can name it if we start on F here. So you got E, B, G, D, A, and E. Well, you could figure out every note now, okay? But let's add just a little bit more information to it, so to speak. If we're on F and we go up one, that's F sharp. It's the lower one called sharp or the higher note called flat. So if we're on F and go up half step, that's either F sharp or it's also called G flat. Get it? So you can name the notes in between the notes, the lower one sharp or the higher one flat. Now, in the musical alphabet, right, there's only A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. There's no H, right? It just goes back to A. Okay. And you just remember between A, B, C, between B and C, there's no note in between. And between E and F, there's no note in between. It's just E, F right away. That's a half step away. Between all the other ones, if you're on A and you go up a half step, it's that note sharped, A sharp, or the higher note flat, B flat. So it has two names. They call that enharmonic equivalent. Okay. It has the same sound. So now by knowing all this, you could go through, and if you know the names of the open strings, and just memorize that, right? E, B, G, D, A, E. So E, if you're on E and you go up a half step, that's F. If I'm on B and go up a half step, that's C. So now you're naming the notes on the first fret. If I'm on G, go up a half step, well, that's G sharp, or it's also called A flat, the higher one flat. If I'm on D and you go up a half step, well, that's D sharp or E flat. If I'm on A and go up a half step, that's A sharp or B flat. If I'm on E, which is the bottom string, again, it's F. Okay. Now, if I'm on F and you memorize that and go up one step, well, now I'm on F sharp or G flat. If I'm on the second fret, well, this was C, right? We learned that before. So this must be C sharp or the higher one flat, D flat. If I'm on G sharp and I go up 1, well, that's A, from G sharp to A. Remember, between G is the open string, up 1 is G sharp or A flat. When you raise the note, okay, you take the sharp away and go to the next letter, A. Okay, G sharp, A. Okay, it's like the black key on the piano, right? Let's see, I got to look at this upside down. So I was on G here. Then I go up a half step, G sharp or the higher one flat, A flat. Now, if I'm on G sharp and A flat, which has the same name, I go up 1, I take the sharp and flat away. Well, that's A. Now, if I'm on A and go up 1, that's A sharp or B flat. And if I go up another half step, well, I just take the sharp away and name it B. Okay. So between the notes, A and B, there's A sharp or B flat. Between the notes B and C, there's nothing. Between C and D, there's C sharp and D flat. Okay. Between E or D and E, I said, right? Between D and E, there's D sharp or E flat. Between E and F, there's nothing. It's just F right away. So if I'm on E, the next fret on the next fret is F. Same here. If I'm on E, the next fret is F. Between F and G, okay, there's F sharp or G flat. Okay. Between A and B, there's A sharp or B flat. If I go up another half step from A sharp or B flat, I get to B. Okay, see how it works? So all you have to do this is just go through F, C, G sharp, E flat, or you could, it's better to name them flat names when you're learning because it's a little bit harder. E flat, B flat, F, G flat, D flat, A, E, B, G flat, G, D, B flat, F, C, G, A flat, E flat, B, G flat, D flat, A flat. Again, you just have to remember between E, if you're on E and you go up to F, it's 1 fret. Okay. If I'm on F and go up to G, that's 2 frets because that black key is in between on the piano and on the guitar. There's a fret in between. It's that one sharp, F sharp, or the higher one flat. Okay. If you're on any of those notes, anything that has a sharp or flat, when you go up to the next one, you simply go to the next letter and remove the sharp or flat. Or, I mean, it's sequentially in the alphabet, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's just repetitive and repetitive. Just remember between E and F, B and C, there's nothing. Okay. So I hope that straightens that out. Now that's called a half step. And it's also called a minor second. And there's a small difference, and it's mostly in a naming convention, so to speak. If I say, what's a half step up from G? If I'm on G here on the 3rd fret, and I say, what's a half step up? I could say G sharp, right? The note sharp, or the higher one named flat, or A flat. Okay. If I call it a minor second, which is also a half step, it's another way to name a half step. I generally have to call it by the higher one flat. Okay. And the reason is because you called it a second. Okay. G, A. So you always go up to the next letter when somebody says, play me a minor second up from G. Well, that's A flat. It's really not G sharp. It has exactly the same sound, and it's more a technicality, but it's just something to keep in mind because when you start spelling chords, it'll make a little bit of a difference. Not in the sound of anything, but just how you communicate and speak clearly with everyone. So just a couple things there. So what you want to do with this information is memorize all the notes of the open strings and then go through and figure out all the notes in your guitar. Well, now, does that make you a better player? Well, not immediately, no. But at least you have a little bit more knowledge about your guitar. If somebody says, give me a C, well, you know where they're at, right? I mean, how many times have you played a scale and not known what notes you're playing or some sort of lick? Like, what notes are you playing? Okay. And then we'll relate that to how that looks on the staff. So the thing for today is, Learn what a half step is. That's 1 fret. Learn there's always between E and F, there's no note in between. A half step up from E is F. A half step up from B is C. Every other note has that letter name sharp or the higher letter flat in between. So between G and A, there's G sharp and A flat, which has exactly the same sound. So those are the things to keep in mind. If you name them, you can also call it a half step a minor second. If you call it a minor second, if I say, what's a minor second up from G? Well, that's A flat. If you say G sharp, you're not technically wrong, but just to be clear, it's actually called A flat. So by knowing major seconds, and by the way, 2 half steps make a whole step in case I didn't say that. So if you name major seconds and whole steps are called major seconds, again, you have to name them 2 notes away. So if I say, what's a major second up from F? A major second is 2 half steps, so I have to name it some kind of G. Might be G flat, G sharp, or G natural. Well, in this case, if I'm on F and go up 2 frets, that's G natural. And you can see that on the piano too, a little bit easier. If I'm on G and I go up two half steps, 1, 2, which makes a whole step, this is A natural. Okay. So if I'm on, let's take another one. If I'm on E, which is the first string open, and I go up a whole step, I say, somebody says, what's a whole step up? Well, that's 2 half steps. So E, there's 1 half step, F sharp. Now, it's actually G flat too, right? But since I called it a second, you want to name it some type of F. Okay. So that's the gig with this. If somebody calls you and says, what's a major second up from E? Well, you could technically say it's G flat, but E, F, G, that's some type of third. You want to name it as some type of second. That just makes it a little bit more precise. And it's actually probably the better way to look at it. So the thing for today is learn half steps and whole steps, major seconds and minor seconds. Major seconds are 2 half steps. Minor seconds is 1 half step. Anything called a second, you have to name it from the note away. Anything called a half step, you can pretty much name it any way you want. And it's important if you can do that and you can memorize the open strings in your guitar, you're able to figure out every note on the guitar now. And that's going to be real valuable when we're working with chords and stuff. So, in this quick lesson, it takes some time and it's not going to happen overnight, but learn the names of the notes on your guitar. It's very valuable. You'll see how it'll help you out in the long run, and anyway, I hope you'll tune in. I hope you hit subscribe. I hope you like this kind of stuff. I'll try to fill in the gaps where, folks who just play great licks and talk and tell you how to play these great scales and stuff. It's all great stuff. Keep watching it. I'm going to try to fill in the gaps with a little bit of theory, a little bit of some of the stuff that's been valuable to me, because it's a long process to learn to play really well. So, in any event, I want to thank you for watching. Please hit subscribe and like, and if you have a comment or question, let me know. So this is Keith. Hope to talk to you again soon, and happy holidays. I'll be back on tomorrow. Bye-bye.